Hi, folks. My name is Jay Emerlinson, and I'm a transformation engineering lead here at Software AG and a specialist in the ARIS platform. And today we are beginning a brand new series called Help! I'm an ARIS admin. This is going to be an opportunity for you to learn all the basic skills you'll need to help support your very first ARIS project, or if you're helping to stand up an instance for your organization. We're going to go over a lot of the different kinds of things you'll need to know right off the bat to make it easy and fast for you to get into this job, and also to be successful, help the team members you've got, and make sure that you can get all the value possible off the ARIS platform for your organization. Now, this video is intended as an introduction to some of the things we're going to be covering over the video series, helping you to understand some of the tasks you might want to do, but also giving you our tech tip, of course, which will help you get your very first database stood up in your ARIS environment. Now, don't worry, it's easier than it seems. There's a lot of functions that an ARIS administrator can do, but they kind of fall into four basic categories. The first is you're going to help set up and maintain the ARIS environment itself. That's going to involve a couple of different tasks that might happen asynchronously, so maybe once every so often, or might be more periodic to do things like maintain some of the content, make sure that things are kept up to date. You'll also be doing things around the functionality for ARIS, so helping to configure and maintain the way in which the ARIS product works. Now that's going to make sure your teams are equipped properly to do the right kind of work and given the tools they need to be successful. And that's something that we'll talk about in some of our more advanced conversations during this series. You're also going to be doing some basic access and permission control. It's something that I've talked about in a previous series, but we're going to go over it again and get into a little bit more detail about what each of these types of roles and license privileges do and how to manage and monitor their use and be able to quickly allocate and reallocate them to make the most of the purchase you've made of ARIS. And lastly, you help support and enable the people who are using the platform. And this is something that's a little bit more nebulous. We're not going to talk about it too much in the series, but just to talk about some of the skills you might want to have going into this. Besides being a technical administrator, oftentimes what an ARIS admin does is act as a buffer for questions and conversation topics about process and process-related excellence, and how you can get better at your modeling, how you can build models that better connect into the rest of the organization, how you can use the environment. And so oftentimes administrators are called on to bring that sort of expertise and perspective. Don't worry if you don't have it, that's totally fine, but it is a good thing to include, particularly if you're looking to stand up a center of excellence, or at least a competency center for giving people the tools they need. So don't worry, it's easy. They fall into those broad categories, but let's talk about the first tip number two is do what matters first. Don't worry about necessarily going down the really deep rabbit hole of deep technical configuration. We'll touch on some of those things, but don't worry, there are some easy things you can do to get your environment stood up right off the bat. So the question is, what matters to get people moving, to get ARIS actually working? Well, first is we're going to help you create your first database. And that's what we're going to talk about at the end of this PowerPoint presentation. We're going to get into actually just creating your first database, what it means to get into the ARIS administrative tool sets, and be able to start off with a place to put your stuff. Don't worry, you can also build folder structures inside, which are very helpful for encapsulating content. Also, it's used for access and permission control. And for those folder structures, they provide context to a lot of the work that's being done. We'll talk about how to initialize user groups. These are really easy to get moving on, but it's something you'll have to do right off the bat, and it's something that's pretty fast and quick to do. Easy to do. It's at your fingertips in either the administration tools if you're looking at ARIS Advanced or if you're looking at ARIS Cloud Enterprise. Both are places where you'll be doing that sort of control. The next thing that's really easy to do is set up entry models. Those are ways you can help provide navigation tools for your users to all the resources that they have available to them. It's really handy. It does a couple of different things. Besides making it faster for people to get access to information, it also makes people understand the content, what the database has, what they can look for, what they can expect. And those are really handy. We'll get into that in a subsequent video. And lastly, you can help configure a basic method filter. We'll talk about that in more detail with all the different steps, but there are some default method filters or out-of-the-box things that you can use and just reconfigure them for your needs. You don't have to create something from scratch. You don't have to modify the whole way ARIS works. These could be really quick ways for you to get an easy win for you and for the organization. And then After that, we're going to build on some success, getting some more advanced functionality. And those first 5 points are a really good way to get your feet wet in ARIS administration. Once you've done those 5, you really set up the environment so people can at least start making stuff. But they're going to call on you to do extra things as things go along, and as you want to do more advanced functions. I'd like to make sure you're equipped with the tools you need. For instance, creating things like custom symbols, modifying the core method of ARIS, as in the types of attributes, the types of models, the types of objects, the types of connections, those sorts of things. Everybody has their own special sauce. Every organization wants to do it a little bit differently, and I'm sure yours does too. So you're going to get a bunch of requests from stakeholders, and I'll tell you how to take those and turn them into actions and be able to reflect them in your environment. Then some of the things you might want to also do is change the viewer portal. The design of that viewer portal it'll come out of the box with sort of a default system design. You're going to probably want to modify that to make it a little bit easier for people to get in. Portal configuration, there's many layers of it, but the very basic level where you can get a lot of good done for only a small amount of effort and knowledge. I'm going to walk through that in one of our videos. And then we're going to go and refresh back on creating basic custom reports. We're going to be using the what you see is what you get report editor. So it's no coding required. If you do have JavaScript experience, or anyone in your organization does, that's really handy. There is a JavaScript coding interface for the ARIS reporting system. But for you as an ARIS administrator, just at a basic level, you can build on some success and get a sort of second level of effort and value by just using the what you see is what you get editor and taking and turning templates that you might have from across the organization or from key stakeholders, turning those templates into things that ARIS can kick out about the work that's being done. That's really handy and really fast to make those sort of things come to life. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to bring in stuff that you might have existing in the environment. Visio files, files from other types of modeling tools that have been done, Excel documents or Excel files, Word documents, just content. Wherever it is, however it's been stored, there's lots of ways of getting that into ARIS. And as an administrator, one of the things you might be doing is helping to either facilitate that import process or doing the import yourself, creating these libraries and content repositories that people can draw upon as they're doing their process modeling. And that might be an important part of what you're doing. And then lastly is, you're going to be managing this environment. This sort of, this repository is your baby, and it's part of your job to make sure that remains operational. It remains, clean and functional for everyone who's looking to do things. So we'll talk about consolidating databases, backing up and maintaining databases, ensuring that everyone's sort of left, with all the tools they need, but also nothing extra and nothing confusing, and making sure you sort of go through and clean up all the things that people occasionally leave around. I know that you'll be a cleaner all the time, and this will take a lot of your job. In fact, there's a lot of automation we can activate to help make that happen quicker. But just saying that's at a second level, that's something you'll end up doing. And once again, it won't start right off the bat. People will obviously have to ingest content for it to get kind of dirty, but it will be something you end up doing as part of what you do for maintaining the environment, and it'll do a lot of good for the people you work with. So the tech tip of this video is getting you right into the very first thing you'll do. So depending on what system you have, either you'll be using something like ARIS Cloud Advanced and logging in, or ARIS Cloud Enterprise. It looks a little bit different. It's totally fine. Either way, you're going to end up wanting to go into the Java client, the ARIS Architect client, or ARIS Cloud Administration client, depending on where you are. So on ARIS Cloud Advanced, I can log in and ignore the project room. I'm going to go back over here and click on this download button, and that's going to download the jar file that will launch my my ARIS Cloud Advanced Administrator. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to use the ARIS Cloud Enterprise for this, and essentially for most of what we're going to be talking about today. Well, a lot of this will work on ARIS Cloud Advanced, and most of this stuff we'll be talking about is really transferable, and those skills and that knowledge is pretty important. I do want to focus a little bit about what Enterprise can do. Because if you're looking at a small instance of people who are looking to grow and looking to build, that's where a lot of things might be. So as you log into ARIS Cloud Enterprise, you're going to want to go to your name, which might just be system at the point where you log in. And please log in using the system user with the system user password. You'll be provided that as part of what happens. And hit download clients. And the client you're looking to download is the ARIS Architect / Designer. You'll be using the Architect component of it, but there is a legacy Designer, which if people prefer Java clients, there's a mechanism of doing so. When you open that jar file, it's going to launch in your Java runtime environment. So it's going to do a little bit of checking. It'll probably download a bunch of files. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And then it'll launch up and open up a login screen. Once again, you'll use the same username and password that you got to log into the system user account in ARIS Connect. And then you'll go from there and open up ARIS Architect. So you see here, it's got sort of run ARIS. In your very first connection, you might actually get this screen, which has a couple of things like what my username and password, and I obviously save it, and then some preferences, like for instance, how do I want to log in? What sort of perspective do I want? You're going to want everything turned on. So everything all the licensing you have access to, you're going to want to make sure that you have all that licensing turned on. So you want modeling, you want administration and configuration, and any of the additional perspectives you can have. So you also will select a database. You might come with a My First database or some reference content. This is the United Motor Group reference database. You may or may not have it. That's totally fine. You can select which database you will log into every time you get there. That's it's neither here nor there. That's not going to be super relevant for you going into it, but it is, don't be scared if there's extra steps to go in. And I'm gonna hit OK. It'll take a couple seconds and launch up ARIS Architect. Once you're at Architect, there is a couple of things to know. So first and foremost, if you don't have any databases, don't be scared. That's totally fine. That's how you might start right off the bat. You're going to be creating your own database, one that's meant for you and the organization you work with. And you're going to be populating that database with all the content that you want and all the structure that people will need. So let ARIS Architect run, launch, and then we're going to right click and create our very first database. So you can see I'm going to go to this Explorer window. Right here, we're going to be sort of hovering between Explorer and administration over time. You'll see the URL of your instance. It's probably going to be like yourcompany.ariscloud.com. And you're going to right click on here and say new database. That's going to create a brand new spanking database for you. Give it a name, and then you do have a choice here. I would suggest checking the versionable box. That means you can later on choose to version your database. What that means is it's sort of taking a snapshot in time of what all the models or what one or more models and objects look like at a certain key moment, and then be able to save that as a sort of previous copy that's not editable. It's just viewable and comparable. I'm going to check the versionable button and say my demo database. And here we are. Hit OK. And it's going to take a couple seconds to create your database. Now you've got this database right here. And if you click over in this little sideways arrow, we're going to log in. We'll talk about this later, but right now we're logging in using the entire method. So all the possibilities. And you'll see that there's a couple of different things here when you open it up. Things like scheduled report services, anything else that might be popped open from the licensing you have. But you'll notice that main group, where all the content is, it's empty. It means it's ready for you to create your very first structure. So that's been our intro, the kind of topics we're going to talk about over the next video series. Thank you so much for paying attention. If you like these videos, please make sure to follow on ariscommunity.com or through the learning portal. I'm J.M. Erlinson. Once again, if you have any feedback, please feel free to drop a line, leave a comment, share something, send an email. That's wonderful. I love getting feedback, and this video series and Help I'm an ARIS Admin is a direct result of feedback we received from our first couple video series people saying, hey, this is something that I'm having to do. Help me out. So thanks so much for your time. We'll see you in the next video.